Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Bear Guys and 2T Fitness. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. 'Cause we learned it from you, Dad. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the 1982 Singles Edition. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, of course, the Mad Brit, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Give it to me, Tom.
Where does the pollen go?
So good.
That's great. I like that you're singing for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an original musical.
It sure is.
It believes it was previously a stage musical, but it was not.
And of course, for our 1982 single sequels, we are being joined by a special guest, Matt Aldrich, screenwriter, co-writer of Coco. Hello, Matt.
Hey guys, when Mike first asked if I wanted to do this show, he said, "What sequel do you want to do?" And anything, just anything.
Oh wow!
And I
was surprised by your answer.
I hemmed and hawed. I said, "Well, we could do this, we could do that, but that would be lame." But this, and then it hit me like a bolt of lightning, a bolt of greased lightning. I said,
"Now you're on our level."
I said, "I want to do Grease 2." And
I was shocked when I got that.
Yeah.
Text.
And I could tell you were shocked, and you were like, "Well,"
I said that comes with some other problems because that's
Yeah.
a single sequel.
It's a single sequel.
You're
and
committing to more than you first thought.
So what the wonderful thing is, because this movie came out in 1982, we started looking at the other movies that came out in 1982, and I discovered what has become my obsession, which is the movies of 1982. That it's a truly remarkable list of movies. I have set myself to watching every one of them, good, bad, and indifferent. So this sort of has become a much larger project. But
Stay
it all started.
tuned, I might add.
Yeah, it all started with Grease 2. That was the gateway drug. And I'm so glad to be finally talking about it, because I hadn't seen it in, nearly 40 years.
Wow.
I
had
saw
not
it when
seen
I was a
it
kid.
ever.
I mean, I shouldn't say that.
I'm somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah, I think I would say 30 years. It's been 30 years since I've seen it. But I think it like a lot of movies from 1982, it got a lot of play on cable. And this was around the time when we all started getting VCRs and we all started taping movies. And so,
Right.
In my house, this was a favorite movie of my sister's. And so it always felt like it was on. And I was also talking with my wife about this movie because she sort of came, I was like, "Do you want to watch this?" And she goes, "Oh, no, I've seen it too many times." So like for people of a certain age, I think this is one of these movies that we kind of grew up with, especially women.
I was going to say that I have noticed the same thing. There are women our age who will not hear a word spoken ill against Grease 2.
Yeah, in fact, it has become a bit of a cult movie where even in the last few years, they did like a vinyl printing of the soundtrack, like a special collector's edition version of this. Like this movie has aged well in terms of people's regard for it. And I think because it came out when it did in 1982, it was 4 years after the original.
4 years. It was
original
1978.
So it came out 4 years after the original, and it came out in the summer against a slate of movies that few summers have seen. in
Right.
terms of the extraordinary titles that were dropping every single week. And then you have this sequel of an incredibly successful movie, big summer release, except it doesn't have the two main characters in it, the two actors. This movie was just like, the deck was stacked against it, and I think it took time for people to fall
Find
in
it
love
or-
with it and
or
watch it
appreciate
again
it,
and again. It was sort of the fodder of slumber parties and
Well, do you think part of that has to do with our sort of obsession with original movies? Other sequels are different because a lot of times, Tom, you and I have talked about bringing the band back together, so you have original cast members, and it's not as
Mr.
often
Spears
that
doesn't
you...
count?
Huh?
Mr. Spears doesn't count?
Yeah, I mean, you have some
Even though he's
secondary
named a different character
characters.
for some reason.
I know. But between that and the principal and the principal's, what is it, Blanche?
Yeah.
The coach is back.
Yeah.
Eugene's back, but
they bring back
Everyone you want back is back.
it's a bit
if you're weird and old.
Yeah, it's a bit like when they rebooted Saved by the Bell and like one of them came back and he was like in the faculty. It was
Right.
like it's not as satisfying as a sequel really should be, and it doesn't deliver on the promise. I think of a sequel in that just out of the gate.
Yeah.
And also, again, looking at sort of the cards stacked against it, I think it's very hard to sequel a musical. There's not
Yes.
a lot of good
Right.
examples of that. I mean, even just a few years ago in the Mary Poppins, I think that was the best version of like a sequeled musical. That really took the original and reworked the story while also giving you exactly what you came for, and so it's just like it's rare that you have a good sequel to a good musical sequel, because so much goes into the creation of a musical. Grease had the advantage of being a show, like on Broadway, written by a team, and it went through all of the development and stages of honing to get a show to Broadway and to be a success. And then you have a sequel that is thrown together, and I swear no two songs are written by the same people in this movie.
Oh, can't possibly be.
They're not. They're the song credits. If you stay through the credits and you see the song credits, it's a
Hodgepodge.
It's a hodgepodge. It's a rock soup of everybody who ever wrote a song got a song into this movie, and so it lacks all cohesion. Again, these things that were sort of hobbling the movie out of the gate. Yet I go to the mat and I say, this is still an entertaining movie to watch. I enjoyed watching it. My son came in. My little son, he's 9 years old. He came in. He watched the last half of it with me, and he was into it. And he wouldn't admit to being into it, but he was into it.
That's funny.
Yeah, it weirdly feels like a jukebox musical, which usually just one artist, but it's a kind of jukebox musical just because it feels disjointed
Completely.
Right.
From song to song, which is one of the big disadvantages of that kind of musical. It's like, why would you be singing this song now? And that's what every song in this kind of feels like.
Most of the times when I wrote down a title to a song, I put a question mark after it.
Because
This
you
is
weren't
what the
sure
song's
that.
about?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I would have to like.
But that, I think, is part of what makes this movie so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it hits you with some surprise left hooks every now and then, like enough to make you go, like, are they really making a movie about this? Like, is this really what this
Right.
This is in? This is not. I'm not watching deleted scenes. I think, like, okay, for me, like, on the surface, that's what I was saying in the mini-sode. On the surface, this movie on paper is a great idea. Okay.
No,
we're going back to Rydell High School.
Yeah.
Right.
Great, I'm in. We're going
It's
back
a new
to
school year.
It's a new school year. New kids, and you remember that the last time when it was the the greaser gang and the tough guy and the new fresh-eyed fresh off the
Right,
bus
we're gonna
girl.
invert it.
We're gonna reverse that, and she's gonna be the tough one,
Classic
and he's
sequel
gonna be the
inversion.
guy.
Sequel inversion.
Exactly.
Impasse.
It on paper is a great idea, and then again noteworthy. It's a noteworthy film in that it is Michelle Pfeiffer's first
Right.
role of any size,
Consequence.
and it was it was kind of a star turn for her. Like
Yeah.
she walked out of this being
Unscathed,
sort of
and everybody
seen
else
and-
seemed to be scathed.
yeah.
Well, a big part of why I think women are, so, I mean, what do I know? But women are so into this movie. It's directed by a woman, and it puts women front and center. And that woman is Michelle Pfeiffer. So
yes.
it's kind of, it speaks on a level that certainly the original doesn't speak to. With
It definitely
the Olivia Newton-John character.
It definitely goes the extra mile. I think it, at the end of the day, though, it's still a 1982 movie, and she's still singing about, like, what does she want? She wants a guy on a motorcycle rather than she wants to be the one on the motorcycle. Like there's
The duality works both ways.
Yeah,
sadly,
it doesn't
Right.
go all the way where
In both movies, in the first movie, a woman has to change to what she's not to get the guy, and in this movie, the guy has to change into
Yeah.
what he's not to get the girl.
Yeah,
exactly.
So they both have the same problem with opposite genders.
She has to get more traditionally feminine, and he has to get more traditionally masculine. But
Right.
somewhere in the middle of that is something a bit more progressive for women.
right. And the movie is while dramatically I have quarrels with the story, and I have quarrels with I have questions. I have lots of questions.
Nothing but
I have lots of
nothing but
questions.
quandaries and questions for this movie for me.
But I can say, like, this is a movie about kids, like, wrestling with being in relationships, being in love, having sex. The preoccupation, the super preoccupation with having sex, especially having sex for the first time, is also something that you see in a lot of the movies from 1982.
Porky's.
Night Shift. There's a whole sort of subgenre of 1982 movies that involve brothels in some way. E.T. Yeah, Phone Home.
I may have misinterpreted.
You might have
that movie.
misinterpreted
That
that
was
movie
his.
a bit.
That was his finger, Tom. That was his finger.
Oh,
that
it all
glowed
makes
red.
sense now.
That was
That's
his
why I
finger.
wondered in Airplane 2 why he was dialing a phone with his penis.
Yeah, which would have been a better joke, but we'll get there. So, like I said, on paper, Grease 2 sort of presents itself, I think, really honestly and openly. I think the opening number is really good. We got to go back to school.
Back to school again, yeah.
I have that same note.
It's a
Yeah,
really
so
it's,
do I.
It's a really good number. It kind of comes in and out as you sort of meet all of your, if anything, this movie suffers from too many characters. But you meet all of them, and you sort of get you get to know your gang really fast. And
It's efficient in that way.
It's incredibly efficient. It's fun. It's lively. You're sort of drawn into the world, and it ends on a gag with the sort of the band nerds cello being strung up on the flagpole. And
My
it's
only
like,
question
boom.
in that whole first song was why Patricia Birch, who we haven't mentioned yet, the director, had when the kids all finally pose and sing the final note,
Yeah.
and there's like 30 of them, maybe 5 of them are looking directly into camera and the other 25 are not.
So
There are some interesting questions from a choreography standpoint throughout this movie. Later on in the movie we have a musical number that begins with 20 people wedged in a glass doorway.
yes.
Right.
See, here's a bit of context. The director was the choreographer of the stage musical Grease, and the choreographer for
the first movie,
for the
right?
first movie. And so
I know she's directed a lot of Cyndi Lauper videos.
yeah, and so
for what it's worth,
I think again on paper she's an excellent choice to direct this movie. But I think one of my big critiques of this movie, and it's sort of what I see as sort of the something sort of underpinning a lot of the problems with this movie is I think the movie generally looks really cheap. I think the lighting is harsh. I think the production value is minimal. It just feels like we're just kind of, I don't know, it looks like a guerrilla movie made in Glendale. Like you're like, okay, we got the vacant lot. We got this corner of Griffith Park. So for him to ride the motorcycle for the first time, like for me, movie musicals are really tricky. It's a tricky balancing act. And I think like I think the best movie musical for me, in my opinion, is West Side Story. And it's the best for me. It's the most realized musical in that the production value is as heightened, and the set design, the art design is as heightened and non-realistic as the fact that characters are breaking out into song. Like when the music and the art direction sort of rise to the same level, it's really wonderful. When art direction is trying to be realistic and people are breaking out into song, I feel like that's a dissonance for me that I never quite get over as an audience member. Now, there are musicals that's for sort of the musical where people break out into song. I think on the opposite end, on the realistic end, my favorite musical is Once, and all of that music is real. Yeah. It's real music. It's taking place in the world.
It's happening.
Yes.
Yeah, in
it's
real
happening
time.
in the universe of the world. It's actually existing. It's not coming in being piped in from nowhere. And again, the art direction is super realistic. And so like when the two of them match,
they match.
I find that that's to me what makes the most successful movie musical. And so Grease is really successful because the art direction is out there. You look at, it opens with a cartoon, first of all. Mm-hmm. And then you look at numbers like Grease Lightning.
We talked about that, haven't we, Michael, weirdly?
Yeah.
We talked about how I never remember that's going to happen. and I think I'm accidentally watching like an animated version of Grease.
It starts with not just a cartoon, but like a Schoolhouse Rock kind of vibe.
Yeah, right.
Like it's funky and it's funky.
But when
and
you
it's
get into
weird.
numbers, when you get into numbers like Grease Lightning,
exactly,
and
Beauty School Dropout,
School Dropout, I was just gonna say,
where they take on sort of a dreamlike quality, and I feel like for this movie, it never gets there until they go to Motorcycle Heaven in the last half hour of the movie. And it's that moment where she sings, what's her Torch song?
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna forget that. I have to have the set list in front of me.
Girl for All Seasons?
No, it's the one she sings after Girl for All Seasons.
Yeah, but it's the one.
Yeah, it's her Torch.
I didn't write it down.
From her Torch song on, I feel like this movie finally becomes a sequel to Grease, because you go to Motorcycle Heaven, you suddenly are at a luau, and it's just like it's just.
But it also, I think the other thing I love specifically about her Torch song, even when this movie is finally getting to a level that you're talking about, in which it's matching with the song itself, but I'm often left with questions, and in that moment, in reality, she is on stage in front of an audience full of people.
Yeah.
But she is singing in her mind.
Yes.
She is singing a duet.
Yes.
But in reality, he's not there.
He's not there. But they do it really artistically, because that star kind of flies away on her. And it's like, we are not in reality anymore. And it was
Right.
like, I've been waiting for an hour and a half for this movie to leave reality and go into the same places that the music was trying to go to. Everything felt so gritty. And I think that gritty was because of I don't think the movie had the budget it needed. I don't think it had the art design it needed. I think it, there's a number which I still can't believe is still in there, but it's a very entertaining number, but it does nothing. It's the number at the bowling alley. Let's bowl.
Score tonight.
Yeah.
We're gonna score tonight. Again, preoccupation with getting laid, and
As if Sesame Street and Sondheim collaborated on a song.
it's the strangest song. And then suddenly like you can see it sort of this urge to be big and cartoonish. You can see it sort of peek through in that song when suddenly there's a nun bowling.
Nuns bowling for no reason.
Yeah,
Right.
you're like, okay, you're just stop trying to get there and just get there. Because everything up until then for me is it just looks too real and just too plain.
Well, I think there's a couple of problems that I had which are related to that. First of all, it doesn't surprise me at all. I didn't know that the person who directed this movie comes from a stage background, because I'm not feeling much cinematic craft here. I mean, all the musical numbers are staged as if they're theater.
Yeah, it has a proscenium quality to it.
Proscenium quality to it. And then of course the story is about a stage show at a high school.
Yeah.
So it become even at the level of content, it's also very stagey. And part of that, I think, is a kind of insecurity about this not being a stage musical originally, and we've got to find some of that in there. But it does lend to that kind of that grittiness and that cheapness you're talking about. Also, I mean, a big thing with musicals is kind of, which I think you've alluded to brilliantly, is this idea of creating a utopia within the reality that you're in, and that's what musical numbers do best.
Yes, sure.
But precious few of these kind of do that, and a big part of making those utopias is doing what they finally do in the last 15 minutes, which is that they kind of all the conflicts of the movie are resolved in one musical number. And at the time I was like, well, yeah, great, but these conflicts haven't been established. Right. There doesn't seem like there's any jeopardy. You're not building your, you created a utopia, but nothing needs to get resolved. So there's all kinds of problems there.
I think too, if I may, on a story level, and again, this might come from the insecurity of not having a stage musical to fall back on, and you're sort of out, on a limb here, writing an original piece. I felt like the story itself was way safer. I think the story itself pulled back where Grease 1 went there. Score Tonight or We're Going Prowlin' versus Grease Lightning.
Right.
It's like drinking Postum. It's just not the real thing. The story of Grease dealt with unwanted pregnancy. It dealt with high school, dropping out of high school. It dealt with it felt like it went to more serious places. That this movie always sort of felt like, well, we're having fun and that's enough, right? And so I think in that way it always felt like, I don't know, just a bit of a bauble.
Well, and not just that, but to me, the things that they try to get serious about,
like nuclear holocaust.
See, I don't even view that as serious, though. Like that.
No, it isn't treated seriously.
That whole segment just seems
but
like
it is serious.
It feels like a delivery system for trying to take advantage of a woman.
Yeah,
It is.
by singing the song "Do It for Your Country."
Yeah.
But the movie hasn't quite come to terms with that.
Right, exactly.
No,
but speaking to what the two of you were just talking about, it's like, say, in terms of characterization, the T-Birds, especially Zemed, whose character, what's Adrian Zemed's character? Nogarelli.
Johnny, maybe? Probably Johnny.
Yeah. It's probably a Johnny.
Probably a Johnny.
You know, the angst of the relationship he has never even reaches the level of the first movie.
Right.
No, well, he never has a leg to stand on because he tries to sort of lay. There's an interesting thing here where he's trying to lay claim to on Michelle Pfeiffer's character, and she is saying like, I'm nobody's property, which I think is a great sort of philosophical statement for the movie, and it is the sort of one of the woke things that the movie is kind of up to.
But it's also juxtaposed with this idea that T-Birds can only date pink ladies.
Yes, and that
Strange.
you know, when she says like it's over, Johnny. I'm just gonna call him Johnny. When she says it's over, Johnny, and he says, all right, well, if it's over and if you want out, fine. But give me that jacket.
But
that
give me the
jacket
right.
is my property. If you're not going to be my property, take off the pink lady jacket. And I think that was the I think there was just like, that was where this movie was like teetering on being about something, but never having
didn't
either
feel
the
fully
confidence
realized,
or
right?
the time. Yeah, the time. It's like this is the version of the show that like plays in Connecticut before you go to Broadway, right? This is the version of the show that plays to Connecticut, and then everybody comes back and they rework it. You know.
Yeah, because I mean, for you know, Grease was very, the original Grease was very radical in many ways. What it did with the musical form, you know, the content and the issues it discussed, which you already talked about. And it ended up being this watered down high school show that every high school did. And here it's like, I feel like it sort of wants to give you the watered down high school version in the vain hope that you'll do this instead of Grease in your high school.
it kind of feels like a photocopy of a photocopy, you know, that it doesn't take any definitive stands. The lines aren't sharp. And I think, again, I've done extensive Wikipedia research on this. That, again, for context, because of the success of Grease the movie, they wanted to make like 4 movies.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
This was going to be the first. This was going to be a franchise with a capital F. And so there was going to be this movie, and then the next one was going to be set even later, and it was going to deal with sort of the hippie counterculture, you know. And I look at this movie, and this movie, as we were talking about in the minisode, this movie killed that whole idea of 4 movies. It killed the franchise, and I think it killed the franchise because they never should have done this movie. They should have gone and done the 3rd movie that they were planning.
The hippie,
yeah, because
it's only 2 years later in the world of the movie, right?
There's an interesting thing about the films of 1982, and just in general about the films of the 80s, but you can see it a lot in 1982, is that there is a nostalgia for America before the Kennedy assassination. It's just it's everywhere. And so so Grease was set in 1958, and Grease 2 is set in 1961, and there's no accident that Grease 2 is set in 1961, because anything later is going to be a different Rydell High School. And it's like I wish Grease 2 had taken that big swing to say, okay, we did Grease, you know, now we're gonna do Hair. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now we're gonna do like you know, the new dangerous thing is not motorcycle guys. You know, that's not the new dangerous thing. The new dangerous thing is like pot and hippies and all of this stuff, and make it about this new thing that's coming up in high schools that has all of the adults worried. And that I thought would have been a much better
use of your time.
I wish they had made that movie. I wish they had gone through and actually made that movie, but because I think of the time that it was made, and there was just a real, culturally in the United States, there was just a nostalgia for life before Kennedy was shot.
Well, not just that, though, but the other thing to me about this movie is that I don't think this movie knows what time it wants to be. It's set in 1961, but it looks like they're still trying to set it in the 50s, and yet it also looks like
but the songs sound like they're from the 80s
movie.
Yeah, and the songs are super 80s. The instrumentation
this movie
is super
feels
80s.
Lost in time to me. But listen, let's take our first break.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we'll delve deeper into Grease 2 right after this, everybody.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back. Tom, Matt, and myself are here talking about Grease 2, the 1982 film directed by Patricia Birch. This movie was extremely unsuccessful, boys. Budget of $13.2 million, opening weekend of $4.6, both the USA and worldwide, $15.1 million. That's not what a studio likes to see.
Correct.
No. I think that's like the marketplace speaking.
But
it's okay because we've got Airplane 2 in December. It'll carry Paramount through.
Okay,
but there are plenty of examples of classic movies that people love, like Princess Bride, who people today would say was this huge monstrous hit, and it was not. It made no money in the theater. It got found on VHS.
Absolutely.
When it came out on video.
And like I said, this movie,
and this is the opposite. No money, or the same as no money, but I don't think anybody, there are people that are going to admit that it's a bad movie, but like we've stated before, don't speak ill of it. Because I love it.
Yeah, I think it's one of these things that's beautiful for its imperfections.
Yeah.
And that it's found a way to be sort of have people take it in, and it's sort of a dear friend in a way. And like I said, it was one of these movies that was on a lot when I was a kid. Because my sister would watch it all the time, and they'd sing the songs. And Cool Rider is a great song. I wish it was in Act 1. It would go a lot to. It would go. That would help the story tremendously.
It's smack dab in the middle of my notes.
Well,
that is in the middle of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think again, dramatically, this movie has some problems. So I think the point I was making is its financial success, its box office success is kind of not fair because, like I said, it came out the same weekend as E.T. The weekend before was Star Trek 2 and Poltergeist. The weekend before that was Rocky 3.
Damn.
You know, and so
This movie gonna feel pain.
Yeah, this movie
Yeah.
like just was fighting above its weight, unfortunately. And I think again, on paper, none of those movies, I mean, maybe not Rocky 3, but
This movie's Jerry Cooney. Remember that old white boxer who just he was knocked around by Larry Holmes?
well, sure, I'll take your
Or
word for it.
Stallone in Rocky Balboa. Take your pick.
Yeah,
Oh my
right.
god. So yeah, this movie has, you know, the box office success is not, as you were saying, where it found its home, and I think it found its home in people's homes on cable and VHS.
And there's like as like a kind of adjunct to the original. I know, like I remember hearing June Diane Raphael on How Did This Get Made talk about how Grease 1 and 2 are indistinguishable to her because she had the double VHS, and she
Yeah.
would just watch them on a loop. And I think,
As you did for Airplane.
as I should have done for Airplane, but did not, because I was scared, and rightfully so.
After the first movie, you always said your safe word,
Yeah.
and the VCR just stopped.
That's right. The
Pumpkin
VHS
patch,
just
pumpkin
magically
patch.
stopped. But I think that's part of it too. And like on an audio level, I kind of feel the same way. Like I feel like I've listened to the soundtracks of both movies on a loop. I was convinced before watching the movie this time that Back to School was in the original Grease. I
Oh,
thought
wow.
that was how the
Oh,
original
wow,
Grease
yeah.
opened. I mean, the Four Tops are one of my top 3 favorite bands, so take that with a grain of salt. But you know, there's a few numbers in here like Reproduction and you know the what's the one in the nuclear fallout shelter?
Let's do it for our
You're a
country.
country
for
where,
our
where
country.
it kind of, I guess, partly because it feels like it feels as these songs kind of feel as challenging in addressing issues as the original movie does, that I've kind of mistaken them for songs from the original. But I guarantee you, you know, there are people who don't know what's in what movie. I certainly didn't.
Yeah, I
I
think
was gonna say,
they can blend together. Yeah.
You're the test case.
But that TV, I mean, like if they're both always on TV, and recirculating, I think that might be a lot of people's experience of them, which was like me and Superman.
I disagree.
2 to 4.
These the songs from this movie to me are so vastly different than the songs from the first movie. You know, also grain of salt because I was in Greece in high school, so maybe I remember those songs better.
Here we go.
You know who was also in Grease? Adrian
No.
Zmed.
You're right.
Adrian Zmed played Danny
On
played
Broadway,
Danny on
right?
Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't touch a little bit on the performance of Adrian Zmed.
I have a
and
note
just
here.
the joy I get out of saying his last name.
Yeah, completely. I have a note here that says, "Can we all agree on the massive talent, the undeniable talent of Adrian Zmed?"
He's in his own movie.
Yes.
And I want to be in the movie that he thinks he's in. With him. I honestly, like, there's something, there's just something about his performance, and it's very stagey. It's very it's bordering on camp.
Yeah.
And again, like I was saying before, the art design of this movie, for the large part, is very realistic, and I think it was just because of a limited time and budget, and yeah, it's just like when you shoot a musical like on a Glendale high school campus in full like high noon, harsh sunlight.
Yeah,
like it,
right.
you know, it just looks bad. It it doesn't look good, and it's certainly nothing to sing about. It doesn't look pretty. It looks kind of cheap and gritty. And but Adrian is like, he's on stage, man. He is on stage.
Absolutely.
And what's great is that he's making the most out of a character that is so poorly drawn.
So poorly drawn. Exactly right. Yes.
So like this was the thing that I kept. So for those who haven't seen the movie, just picture the T-Birds from Grease, and it's it's the same. It's the T-Birds
subs bench.
It is. It is the bench. It is. It is
bench.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like. Yeah. This is like. They're handling the game in garbage time. Like this is the crew.
Yeah.
It's just like maintaining the lead.
You're
and
up by 40. Bring in Zemed.
Bring in Zemed, Christopher
Bring in that guy who
McDonald, and the
played
rest of the
Zuko on
T-Birds.
Broadway a few years ago.
Yeah, he'll be great. So it's the bench.
And also,
It's
by the way, they're all
T-Birds bench.
strangely cowards.
Yes, this is what I'm getting to, is that they, and maybe to what you were saying before, Tom, about it being sort of watered down, that the T-Birds, I don't understand why, like they keep saying, we've got this rep to protect. Yet,
Right. What rep?
Yet,
You run away from every fight.
What is their rep? They're all on the football team.
Yeah.
They are really interested in winning the talent competition.
Right.
and apparently they all have this reputation of writing their own essays, like, and really good ones. They just don't have time to now, and they have to hire Michael to write their essays for them. It's this weird thing of like, they're always, whenever Michael writes the essays for them, this is halfway through the movie, Michael needs to raise money, so he starts writing essays for the T-Birds and getting them good grades. And they hire him. Each of them hire him, and they each of them say the same joke, which is independently, not knowing. They each go to him independently and say, "I have a rep to protect.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell anyone about this." The idea is like, I don't want anyone knowing that I don't write my own essays because, like, I am up for a Pulitzer. I don't know why they are. Their reputation is so odd.
Yeah.
Now.
I mean, I'm a greaser, but I'm still going to be valedictorian.
I am going to be the king of the luau. I'm going to be valedictorian. I'm going to win the talent show, and I'm going to play on the football team. Now there is another motorcycle gang led by Val Kilmer with acne scars, and he
From
is
the original.
Like, he is like, okay, now I get, like, that is actually a formidable villain.
Yeah.
And so you have this love interest between Michael and Michelle Pfeiffer, and then you've got actual menacing motorcycle gang, and then you've got the T-Birds, which suddenly feel like the biggest spare tire of the story, and they're just fighting to be like they're fighting to like justify why they're even in the story, if that makes any sense.
No, I know what you mean.
And so, like, everything involving the T-Birds, like Let's Do It for Our Country and Prowlin, and all of the numbers that are really T-Bird heavy feel so, like, I don't know, they feel like the appendix. Like, we're just like, just take it out.
I saw it.
Also, can I ask, is Prowlin the song they're singing when they're... What's the song that they're singing for the actual talent show?
Prowlin.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because they have a rehearsal version
Yeah.
where it seems it's like a big mess.
And
but
then they
you
do...
get to the talent show, and it sounds fantastic, but they give you like the last 5 seconds of the song.
Well, we've already
and I
seen
keep
all
thinking,
the songs we've seen too much rehearsal. We've already seen all the songs by the time we get to the talent
I
contest, which is a
wanted to
big
see that
narrative
song
problem.
firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
though.
There's a lot of reprises.
And
Here's
Mr.
my
Sandman
biggest-
3 times.
Oh my God, Mr. Sandman and Girl for All Seasons and all of this stuff that we get, these little teasers, again, going through the rehearsals, then you finally see the show as an organizing principle. Like, this is one of those high schools that is just sort of inordinately revolves around the talent show, you know? Like, it seems like everybody's got skin in the game. Like you would think there's just money riding on this talent show.
Yeah.
Like, by how, like, intense, like, everybody
like the
knows it's
chalkboard
coming
from the Sting.
Yeah,
All right, who's
exactly.
got-
Well, one of
Everybody knows it's coming. Everybody knows what's at stake,
Yeah.
and we're supposed to just kind of buy into this, that it's suddenly like the school from fame,
Yeah.
but it's not. You know, it feels like like a put on or a vestige of some other show or idea. But I gotta give Zmed credit for like selling it. and like making the T-Birds watchable. Like if
At all times.
yeah, like I really like his performance. I like all the performances except for Max Caulfield.
Yeah,
I
we
think
need to talk about what my
he is
my
a dead-eyed
countryman.
fish. He is a dead-eyed fish.
Your countryman. Oh, defend
I'm
him,
not going to
Tom.
defend anything.
All right, good.
I mean, it's I mean, we talked about, you know. Yeah, of course it makes sense, and he is Sandy's cousin, right? I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
So we're not.
That's
We're,
the
we're not
right.
just having a kind of a surrogate for Sandy who's a man. He's also related to Sandy, which another imbas, of course. It must
yeah.
be a sequel. But yeah, I mean, it's a very insipid performance that. And how weak I mean, he's up against Michelle Pfeiffer, so you know it's not. It's no surprise that he looks so weak against her, but what he's asked to do in this movie, in terms of, because this movie for me is about duality. You know, we see a pair of twins very early on. Everyone is pretending to be something they're
way-
not, and switching identities, and he's
Right.
asked to go from one kind of masculine one kind of type of identity to another, and it's kind of monotone all along the way, to the point where I can't even tell if he's pretending to be American when he becomes Cool Rider or not.
He is. He's
I think
sounding
he
like
is.
a husky American.
He sounds like
think-
Maurice LaMarche doing Orson Welles.
There's an awful lot of husky whispering in this movie.
There's a lot of There's too much whispering in this movie, I would argue, especially in the finale. But so
Side note,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt
Not
you
at all.
because you said something. The twins,
Yeah.
those twins auditioned separately, were hired
fuck's
separately,
sake.
and then they discovered they were twins and created these roles for them.
What, you mean the filmmakers discovered they were twins?
Yes.
Not they.
They weren't like separated.
They
at birth
weren't
twins.
separated at
No.
birth, right?
Oh, okay. You know,
I think that sums up a lot for this movie.
I think like again, this like on paper, it's like, all right, Sandy's cousin comes to Rydell High School, right? You're like, okay, great, I'm in. Sandy's cousin.
Right.
And then they stop there. They never deal with like, okay, if he's Sandy's cousin, like he knows that when his cousin went to Rydell High School, she changed.
Yeah.
Like she became a very different person. And now he's going to Rydell High School, and so I'm going
She
like,
has
is
lung
there
cancer now.
Well, she has lung cancer. She died in a motorcycle accident, something. You know, but now I'm Michael, and I'm going to the same high school that like deeply changed my cousin. First of all, like, is there like a host family that's just like taking this British family one by one? And by the way, Olivia Newton-John's from Australia, so like I'm a little all over with the, you know, sort of country cousin kind of thing, but that there's never a nod of like, oh, you're Sandy's cousin. Well, I hope what happened to her doesn't happen to you,
Right.
or like some like finger wagging principal or somebody at least acknowledging that they are in fact related. Not that like, again, like I feel like I'm overthinking.
Well, the
this.
only person that
But-
seems to know is Frenchie.
Yeah, she's
But
like,
I
oh,
can't
it's a
even
friend of your
figure
sister's.
out. Could you guys figure out? Was Frenchie going back to high school?
Right.
'Cause she
I
dropped out
thought
of
they were
beauty
gonna do a
school, or
Saved
is
by
she
the
a
Bell thing.
teacher?
Yeah.
I thought they were going to do a Saved by the Bell thing and like make her a teacher or like make her the principal or something.
She's
But
she's the
she just
hard
she's
to
the
tell.
basically functionally she's the Yoda of this movie. She's just there
Yeah.
to tell people the rules and the history of what's happened.
But she never
again,
chooses to tell Michael what you're speaking to right now, Matt.
Again, though, I think this is where you run into the physical realities of production, where it's like they got the actors back for a limited time. They didn't. They can only like it's like you get Frenchie, but you get Frenchie for 3 days.
Well,
You know,
also, no,
like-
it wasn't that.
And it's like you
According
get
to-
Sid Caesar, but you get Sid Caesar for a day and a half.
Sid Caesar looked like
According
he
to
did
her,
his
her
entire
s-
performance in one take.
Yeah.
Yes,
when he
and
runs
I
off
have
that football field, he's gone. He's in his car.
Well, no, but so there's a scene in the beginning where Sid Caesar he's doing he's
Sid
coaching
Caesar things.
He's doing Sid Caesar things. He's coaching the football team, and he's on the sort of that tackling horse kind of contraption, and they push him
For some
back,
reason, they've
back
dug a
and
pit.
back. Yeah, and so somewhere in the end zone, somebody has dug a 6x10 pit about 10 to 12 feet deep. For no reason, no warning, no tape around it, nothing. They've just dug a giant pit into the end zone of this high school football field. Sid Caesar gets pushed into the pit, and he never gets out. They never show him get out. He only then just reappears at the luau at the end of the movie. It's one of these things where, again, like it's a gag, and they get the gag, but they don't. There's such a lack of thought or like consideration to like at least
everything.
At least show him like I have nothing to. He falls into that pit. I have to assume there are like punji sticks down there, and he's dead. Because until I see him get out of that pit, it's like a continuity thing. Like until you see you see him get out of the pit, you're going like, what happened to that coach, man? I think he's still in the pit. I think they left him there. Why was there a pit in the end zone? I don't know. Like I start worrying about the guy, and I'm missing whatever's going on in the movie.
Are we to believe
That was my biggest problem with Grease 2.
Are we to believe that maybe John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John are in that pit?
I think a lot of things.
There are a lot of things are in that, and that's why we're not talking about Sandy.
They
it's kind of
flew
like
away
Uta
from the
from
carnival
The Simpsons.
into that
We don't
pit.
talk about what happened to him.
I think to me it's like they had their 25 words or less for this movie. They had their basic premise, and they thought, and we'll just fill it with numbers.
Well, okay. So here's the
great.
thing. Here's the thing, Matt. That's almost, I think, exactly what they had, because when they started filming, they did not have a finished script. Does
I'm
anybody
shocked.
know the name?
Ken Finkelman would not, I repeat, not allow production to begin until he was done with his script.
I'm just telling you what my research has borne out. So much so, you notice that Frenchie just disappears a little more than halfway through this movie.
Again,
Apparently
I
everyone
think-
does.
Was it
All the legacy
Yeah, was it
characters
because-
do.
She herself...
Again, was it because they had them for 2 days, or because
No,
they...
it was... She herself said that they had an unfinished script. Halfway done with the script, they decided to write her out and told her, the actor, you can leave now. We're not going to use you anymore. But had already been filming her and left her in the movie.
Oh my God, they're just building the plane mid-flight.
Yeah.
Is what they're doing. And that to me, like, again, like, I like Grease. I like the original. I didn't as a kid. I thought it was like, I don't know. I had a bone to pick with musicals when I was a kid, but I learned to really love them. And I think Grease is a really great musical, and it's a great movie. And I want the sequel to be good. I want it to be more than just like a head scratcher. I do think this movie gets there, and I think by the end, again, by her torch number, and when we go to Motorcycle Heaven, the movie finally starts looking like Grease, and the luau, I think, is it's just like, I don't know, it's chef kiss perfect. I was so happy with the luau. It's so ridiculous. And I was like, finally the movie was kind of embracing how ridiculous it was. Reproduction is another number where it's a ridiculous number. I just wish the filming of it had been ridiculous.
Had more flair.
Well, and the sex bunker is very interesting too. I mean, I loved the reproduction
And how terrible it is.
I love reproduction morally, yeah. I love reproduction as a musical number. It feels like it belongs in Little Shop of Horrors or even Rocky Horror Picture Show as a musical number. But I think it's great. And that's the big scene with Tab Hunter, who was one of the few actors from the era, one of the few kind of movie stars from the era that historically the movie's located in. It was a 1950s matinee idol, and here he is playing a teacher teaching sex education to a bunch of kids, and that extra diegetic quality is really nice there.
It is nice. I don't think you need to know who he is to enjoy the number. I think his presence.
A lot of the audience would have known who he was, I think, at the time.
Exactly, and his presence is what I was talking about before, about nostalgia for the late 50s, early 60s, and these nods that live like back to a sort of a simpler time before our notion of what's possible and real has been shattered. And the movie sort of wants to be as playful and as innocent as that time. It's again, it's just a shame, because when you look at Grease, like Grease is not an innocent show. It's not an innocent show at all. But it's good. It's a good show. The songs are great. The performances are great. There's so much talent on the screen in Grease that this movie just to start production without a finished script and to cobble together songs written by 15 different songwriting teams and with the hope that it's going to somehow cohese it's just, I feel it's a miscarriage in some way, a miscarriage of justice. Like don't, if you're going to do Grease, treat it with a little more respect than that.
I suppose that explains, and this really segues into Airplane 2, because I think, well, these are all the same movie, but in respects of tone, these, one of the things that is in all these movies is these irreconcilable shifts in tone, and the nuclear fallout shelter scene, for me,
it's so crazy.
It's insane what in reality we're talking about, which is a nuclear holocaust and someone faking that to have sex.
There is so much false pretense in this movie between the genders.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of bad writing, isn't it, when you're falling back on those kinds of storylines? But
maybe they thought it was Shakespearean.
Well, they talk. I mean, they kind of allude to that later on with the Hamlet and hamburgers line. They talk about Shakespeare in this movie, and again, that they're trying to say, well, Shakespeare wrote, crazy stuff that the proles liked, that was just for kind of mass consumption and all that sort of stuff. So I think they're engaging with it. It's trying to get through that sex bunker scene and trying to sort of reconcile the way everyone's acting on screen about what's happening versus what that means in a larger sense. Sense. And it's even weird with the
lines like "standing me up is bad for your health."
It's weird even in the sense of having nostalgia for that the pre-Kennedy assassination period, because it's nostalgic for nuclear war, but nuclear war is still a big possibility in 1982. So,
right.
Yeah.
Is that why we don't know we don't really know what the tone of this is? But it's a weird thing to introduce if you're trying to be light.
It is, and this movie it's not like this movie is so heavy that we needed a light number. You know? This is not in.
Right. Yeah.
This is not like. We're not. This is not Master of the House.
That's true.
Right. I mean, it's and so it's not in relief to anything, and so it feels like, okay, we have to endure this long, really problematic charm song between two tertiary characters. And it's the movie is clearly just buying time. It's just kind of well, we paid for the song we had written, and
right.
and for whatever reason,
I mean,
we had Michael write all of his essays in a fallout shelter, which they had to set up the fallout shelter because, like, again, it's this thing of like, let's do a number in a fallout shelter. Great idea. And they're like, well, how do we get to a fallout shelter? It's like, well, the family that Michael's staying with has one in the backyard, and that's where he does his homework.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I guess. How are we going to show that? Well, easy. He's going to write essays for the convolutions it takes to get to that number. And then you get there, and it's with two people we don't care about. It's gaslighty and date rapey and just really cringy. Really
and
cringy.
she stays with him afterwards. That's the weird part of it.
Yeah, and
that's
then
the weirdest part.
And
They're
that
still
and
together.
that her reaction to finding out that it wasn't a nuclear holocaust. Her reaction to that is, "Oh, I'm not going to talk to you for the rest of the night." You know, like that was all. Like there's no comeuppance. It just.
You're on a 12-hour probation.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't know.
It was a very strange thing.
Maybe that is because it's still a everyday thing that people have to deal with in 1982. Maybe that's the kind of the way of processing it is you sort of treat it as a joke. I don't know. I don't want to put too much on that 1982 lens, but it's just weird to me that, you know, you're still in a Cold War and you have this kind of detachment from the early 60s part of that Cold War, which is kind of the same situation politically that you're in now. You know, a submarine could send a like a nuclear sub could kill you at any time. 1982, you know? Anyway.
Exactly. It's you know, we're still it's a strange thing to be nostalgic for this simpler era, but like we're under the same threats as that era.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Like the same. It's a strange sort of nostalgia, a nostalgia for a different version of the thing you're kind of going through right now.
I think that's why the Hawaii stuff really works. Is that's some, you know, that early 1960s obsession with, you know, Pacific Islands culture in America is being addressed here, and so it feels like we're being nostalgic for something that's period specific, but also that is genuinely fun, and, you know, all the great Elvis movies that came out of I said great, you know, in inverted commas, you know, great Elvis movies that were great for Elvis movies, like Blue Hawaii. And I'm getting some of the fun, you know, musicalness there. That you know, the Sex Bunker just isn't doing the same thing for me. But I really like it as a number, and I like the kind of somewhat anti-Americanness of it. To sort of do that in Reagan's America, I think, is a little bit provocative. Not too much, but a little bit.
Again, that's the whole movie. It's a little bit, but not too much.
Tinkering with...
Yeah. It just
That's
doesn't...
where this movie comes out. All right, listen, we're going to take another break, and then we'll come back, and we will finish up with Grease 2 right after this. Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and Matt and I are here discussing the 1982 film Grease 2. All right, boys, we're in our last segment. Where do you want to go with this movie? Like, what is your pressing heart of hearts tell you we can't not talk about with this movie?
I'll say this. I feel like this movie, this story, the musical as a concept, as a cohesive thing, it just was, they took it out of the oven too early. You know, I look at numbers like Cool Rider, and you know, that should be in Act 1. You know, that should be not long after, that should be about 15 minutes into the movie.
Right, exactly.
That should be about 12 to 15 minutes into the movie. Michael's number, Charades. You know, we talked about everybody's playing a role here.
Can we talk about charades?
Okay, well, just a second. So Charades is a really strangely conceived, strangely performed, strangely shot. Like, he thinks the song most of the time. So this is the first time.
Oh, yeah, he's in a monologue song.
This is end of Act 2.
There are moments where he's singing the song out loud, and then moments where he's walking down the hallway, he's singing, but not singing.
Yeah, he's thinking a song. I don't think I think this is I can't be sure of this, but I've never seen a main character think his torch song. You know, he's lamenting that he can't be real. He can't be himself in front of the woman he loves, that he needs the mask. You know, he's it's a very classic idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of heartbreaking. But here's the big problem. Again, from standing back and looking at the structure of the movie, this is the first time, it's the end of Act 2 now, this is the first time our main character, or one of our main characters, sings in a musical. This is the first time he sings. Yes, okay. So
when you hear his voice,
there's a
little bit of that. I don't want to begrudge him. I take it as a you know, I have not, this is the only movie of his I've seen, but he has had a huge really storied career on stage, like Max Caulfield. Like, he's no slouch, and he was kind of the hot thing in the West End at the time of being cast for this movie.
He was before, right?
Yeah.
Like, he said this movie put him back by a decade.
Yeah, this movie, I don't think he was ready for, I don't know if he was ready for the camera, if he was ready for this kind of thing, or like I said, this movie just, it should have fried everybody. You know, but this movie and the story was just taken out of the oven a little too early, because that song, shot in a different way and sung by a character who has had several songs so far and who we've gotten to know and like really like and love and pull for, that song could be really beautiful. So case in point, Michelle Pfeiffer's torch song, which is Turn Back the Hands of Time, the duet. That song, I think, is just like, they stick it. That song to me is a 10, and that's where they go to Motorcycle Heaven. And it's a lament. I just want to turn back the hands of time, which again goes to this bigger thing of nostalgia for the pre Kennedy assassination. It's just like, I just wish we could turn back the hands of time and sort of get out of the mess that we created, you know, and make this uncomplicated again. And so I see so many pieces, and so many promising pieces on the table here, and I feel like they've been assembled in the most rickety way possible.
This movie does feel like they put it together and they were like, let's put this one on the island of misfit toys.
What do you mean, like the
whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't you think?
Like I said, I will go to the mat and say this is still a very entertaining movie. Again,
completely.
Good, bad. Like, it's an entertaining movie.
But I think you can also revel in so many of the questions that it raises. I mean, it's got gender and, you know, geopolitical problems. It's got,
You don't want to have Greece have geopolitical angles. That's the thing. It's like Greece is not where you hash out geopolitical
Yeah, that's
issues.
what I'm saying.
This is not the time nor the place. Yeah.
But isn't that part of the magic elixir of this movie?
Yeah.
Or even just on the simplest terms, like when, okay, the T-Birds are going to go fight the pockmarked Val Kilmer.
Yeah. Acne scarred Val Kilmer.
Because they
if
think
you're gonna
he's
keep
by
mentioning
himself.
him,
Then the rest of...
if you're going to keep mentioning him, I have to mention John Candy's less funny brother, who Max buys a bike from.
Totally. Yeah, I rode these all at one point or another. It's like...
So,
Go on.
so you have him. The T-Birds are going to come out because they have the numbers. When they discover that the rest of the gang is there, they cower back into the bowling alley. And who shows up but Michael on his motorbike? And my note is for that scene, I don't understand how he's winning.
No, there's no story happening.
There's
in
just
there. It's just posing. It's
yeah,
just
exactly.
tableaus and posing. And the song "Who's That Guy" is
Yeah.
the worst song of the
Guy?
movie. In my it's the whisper song. "Who's That Guy?" And they cap it with not just an improbable jump over a police car, but like defying physics,
right?
And breaking what few rules you've set in this movie are sort of shattered in that motorcycle jump, where I feel like it is the jumping the shark moment. It is the jumping of the police car.
It goes. I mean, Happy Days is the origins of that. It's not too dissimilar
right?
how it happens in Happy Days with Fonz jumping the shark.
I would also like to point any listeners to, if you want to see Pamela Adlon in her first movie role, credited. She was not Adlon at that point. She was Pamela Siegel, but she played the little kind of runt tag along to
Dolores.
To the Pink Ladies.
Little Bobby Hell.
Yeah.
Californication and
Louie
and well, she's got her own show now.
Better Things.
Yeah.
Better
is her
Things.
show,
Thank you.
and I honestly, she's like a super bright spot to me for this. I feel like, again,
Oh, yeah.
she knows what movie she's in, and I want to be in the movie she is in her mind. I want to be in her movie, just like I want to be in Adrian Zmed's movie, because it's better than the movie that we're in, and like it's this tension that I feel watching this movie. I'm like, oh my god, this could be so much better. It's good, but it's like it could be so much better. I wish.
But again, I think all the mistakes they make in this movie, for me, it helps the movie become so bad it's good.
I don't know.
I don't think it's quite there. There's a lot of unexplained weird stuff that definitely adds to the mystique of it.
Right. Yeah.
The nuns bowling.
Nuns bowling is fantastic.
The creepy Washington face on that T-shirt.
Oh, I have a note that says, what's my note? Because I just put the coin.
What's up with that creepy Washington face on the T-shirt?
I said the president coin outfit leads to another dimension.
Yeah. Would it have been better from a story perspective for the audience not to know for sure that Michael and Cool Rider were the same person? Michael. He's called Michael in this.
Yeah, his
right?
real name is Max. The actor's name is Max.
Right.
Would that have helped him, given that he can't do the Clark Kent Superman thing at all? It's plays it totally the same.
I don't know. I think that would have been a really hard
I was
landing
just
to
gonna say,
stick. That would have
been difficult to do.
I think it would have been so obvious that was going to where you were
Right.
going. I think what we're missing, again, he sings about it in charades, but we don't see so much because it's all in scene work. It's all in like spoken acting-y scenes that aren't particularly electric between the two of them. There's not a lot of chemistry. There's not a lot of chemistry, and so I don't quite see him so torn up about playing the dual role. You know,
No,
it's
not
like
at all.
he decides to play a dual role at the end of Act 1, and it's like, okay, I'm going to be the cool writer until she falls in love with me, and then the Act 2 should be how hard it is to be the cool writer. When it doesn't seem that hard for him until maybe the end of Act 2, and then
when he sings his song.
he thinks sings a song. He thinks sings. He stares off dreamily as a studio recording of his voice starts singing a song, which again is the first time in the whole movie you're hearing your main character sing, which is kind of a no-no.
Well, doing it as in a monologue, I think, just leans into the anemia of his whole performance. Right? I mean,
this is not the Max Caulfield fan club. I called him a dead-eyed fish, and you called him anemic.
I don't. I'm willing to believe in another context he would be, spectacular. But I mean, I think I don't think the
you're
movie's
trying to convince yourself of that.
I don't think the movie's kind of helping him out, and from the get-go he's definitely more the replacement Sandy than Michelle Pfeiffer is the replacement
Danny,
John Travolta.
Yeah.
Again, without any nod to the fact that
that helps that Michelle Pfeiffer is better. I mean, Matt said I don't think he's camera ready. Maybe it's not even about being ready for the camera. It's about that whatever he's doing on stage just doesn't translate onto the screen. Whereas, of course, we know Michelle Pfeiffer can light up a screen wherever she goes.
Yeah, it's a strange it's a strange thing because you have Zmed, who had just played Danny, and so he comes on with a very theatrical performance, and then you have Max Caulfield, who might be like, who knows, was he self-conscious and wanted to dial it back because he knew his face was going to be 35 feet tall, and so anybody dialed it back to the point of anemia.
There's a lot of widescreen in here too. There's a lot of widescreen.
But yeah, he's a bit of a he's a little DOA. Just as soon as he gets off the bus, you're like no, because it's like as soon as Sandy enters, the Rydell High School stops.
That's it, yeah.
And so we take our cues as an audience from how other characters are responding to our main character. And he gets off the bus. Crickets. It's crickets. Nobody. The only person who cares is Frenchie, who comes scurrying up behind him, going, "Michael, you're here." And we're like, "I guess I like her. Yeah. She likes him. I'll take her. Yeah. I'll take her at her word."
To be fair, there is a pretty spectacular musical number going on around him that maybe was taking other people's attention.
Exactly. He enters at the worst time. Let the Our Little Town number happen, and then you enter. Yes. Yeah. Then you come in.
People are like, the Four Tops are performing at our school.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm new, and you're like, we'll get to you.
Sit down.
Yeah. It just, for me, like, this movie, the first act of this movie is just one big sort of misstep
after another,
and so like the rest of the movie is like you're struggling to find reasons to care about anything, and you're struggling to get into the spirit of it, because story wise the first act has it's just missing a lot of like very very traditional, very easy to nail checkpoints and sort of gates. The Our Little Town song, you need your I Want song, you need it's like
so
the first act of a musical is pretty.
I've forgotten so many of these songs.
Oh, you're looking through the song list for...
You're saying titles to me that have just the feel. And is the frequency of songs more than in Greece? It felt that way.
I don't know side by side.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
It feels like there's a song every few minutes, and I don't remember Grease being that way. It's a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know for sure.
And again, it's just that it intensifies that feeling of we're just lurching from one number to another, and the connective tissue is not really doing the job.
No, it's not. yeah, it's really. I have to fault Ken for his book. Finkelman. Ken Finkelman. He's a comedy writer. He was partnered with Rick Moranis. They came up together. Like he's got chops. He's
Yeah.
He's he's still around. Like he's I don't know if he's working these days. He's probably in his 80s, 70s. But he it's the he was brought in to with Airplane 2, two Paramount movies, two mandated from the top down sequels, and they said, Ken, you're our guy. And
Yeah, right.
And he delivered.
You're starting tonight.
Yeah, you're starting tonight, Ken. And he did, he did a job. He did a job on both of these movies. I think it's fascinating.
What more can you say?
I didn't, until I was watching these
Other
movies, I
than
didn't realize
he
there was
did a
that
job.
connection. And
No, yeah, me either.
I was so and what's great is that we're talking about Grease 2 now, and then when we talk about Airplane 2, Ken has a lot to hide behind in Grease 2. Being the screenwriter, the screenwriter of a musical, there's a lot of people out in front of you,
Yeah.
But Airplane 2, he writes and directs.
It's all him.
Ken's on the hot seat. Coming up next. So I'm gonna sort of give him a pass on Grease 2.
There's some good one-liners in here. It doesn't surprise me that a comedy writer, wrote some of the dialogue.
And it's hard to know.
Like, I got this essay on the fall of Rome. I didn't even know they were in trouble.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's like it's Sid Caesar should have said it. It would have.
And
We would
the
have
dumb
remembered it.
student shtick is done pretty well. I
What's
think.
done
Although
well?
as the dumb student shtick is kind of good, but as Matt says, the screenplay doesn't even think they're dumb. They're just
Right.
like slipping from this high achiever these high achievers that they were previously, which makes zero
That
sense.
makes no sense, right?
Yeah, it's like, why can't they just be like dumb kids?
Yeah, who happily will pay for essays.
Yes,
Right.
Like that's kind of what they normally do. Yeah. Don't let it get.
Just
And
don't
that's how
want
they're
to work.
written.
Yeah, but no, they're really concerned with like making the dean's list. It's a very strange characterization that they came up with for this the
This group of
T-birds.
T-birds.
the T-birds, the B team, the B-birds.
Oh, I did that. I put the TB team. That's exactly what I described them as in the notes. The TB team.
So they have tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis?
Hey, would it surprise you if tuberculosis featured in this movie?
No, not at all.
You're
It
right.
would not
Not at all.
surprise
Polio.
me if one of the characters was dying from
Yeah.
TB. That'd be perfectly in line with this, and they sang a little song about it.
I would have welcomed that. At a certain point in this movie, I would have welcomed it.
Okay, so
One of the things, just last thing from me. One of the things that, again, I'm going off memory of Grease here, is I felt like the Grease felt like a school year. Mm-hmm. In this movie, when it was the end of the
Right.
school year, I was like, that's not enough events.
Weird, right? It starts
For
on
us
the first day of
to
school.
constitute a year of
No,
school.
it does. It starts on the first day of school, and then
it's ending
like
at the end
like
of school.
3 weeks of
luau.
stuff happens.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the luau is the end of the year, and I had the same kind of like, I was like, wait, what? We're at the end of the year? We were barely at homecoming. That's kind
Right.
of where I was shocked by
Well,
that.
maybe that was where the script ended.
No, they were like
And then they just
no.
picked
The
it
last
up.
song is like, and now it's time for summer. Like they're excited about getting back to. It starts with back to school, and then it goes to like, I can't wait for summer.
Yeah.
And so
What they need is text on screen saying the time, the date,
you want Halloween 3.
and
You want Halloween 3 is what you want, exactly.
Oh, we'll get there. Oh, don't
and
worry.
some kind of jingle reminding us that time is passing.
Do not worry. We will talk about the Chiron happy director of Halloween 3.
It's where Law and Order must have got it from.
Is that your assumption?
I don't know.
I'm willing to put 50 on it.
I think it. Well, we'll get there when we get there. But I think it was like a transcription accident.
Yeah.
I think the scenes in the script began that way, and somebody accidentally thought it was meant to be in the movie.
I think somebody making that movie saw The Shining at one weekend and came in
that's
Monday
true.
morning going like, guys, I got this great idea how to goose the movie every now and then. And they were like, great, can we do it more than now and then?
Yeah.
I think that's what happened, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this just before we go, because it occurs to me as we're talking about Grease 2, it's no secret that we all have plenty of problems with this movie,
Right.
but we're all more or less declaring this a good movie, and for two of us, it's at the top of our list. So what is it that this movie did right to garner this attention from us? I guess it's more a question for you, Matt, because Tom, this is although you're declaring it a good movie, even though it's third on your list.
For me, it's the last half hour.
And that's it.
Well, what I'm saying is like the movie sort of teeters on watchability for much of the middle of it. Like it starts strong, it teeters for a long.
It starts
starts strong, it teeters for a while, and it's to the point of like I was like, ugh, I might have to watch this in 2 sittings, and then it was like, all right, it's the big talent show, and I was like, all right, Act 3, I can make it through Act 3, and then they kind of limp through Girl for All Seasons, but then But then I forget the character's name, but it's Adrian Smed's, sort of his like squeaky girlfriend.
Oh.
She has a really good sort of. She gives him a good like
Tongue lashing.
The little tongue lashing and a little sort of comeuppance about the way
Yeah.
that she's been treated through the film, and she kind of lets him have it, because he's trying to prevent her from going on stage in a skimpy outfit, and she lets him have it in a really unambiguous way and in a way that they don't backpedal. And I was like, oh okay, hang on. And then they do Girl for All Seasons, and while we have seen we have heard the song before, there's something neat to me about the way they do it all together and the costuming and everything. And you're like, it has a bit of a showy quality. And so it builds. So it's like the movie starts taking these incremental steps. And then when that star flies away and she starts singing Turn Back the Hands of Time and they go to Motorcycle Heaven, I wrote, let me see what I wrote in my notes here. I wrote, Turn Back the Hands of Time finally delivers on the heightened art design. Motorcycle Heaven. Holy shit. How can this get better? Why isn't the whole movie like this? Here for the first time, I am getting a sequel to Grease. And then we go to the luau. I love it. This is the movie I wanted. And so, like, I really felt like, even with the 2020 eyes, like the last half hour of this movie is good, and it saves it the whole experience for me. So if you
see, I didn't feel like it had to be saved, because even when I knew the movie was floundering, I was still reveling in all of its mishaps. I was still enjoying that. And then one of my last notes was, wait a second, does Adrian Zemed have the biggest character arc in this movie? I think so.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself to me explains this movie completely.
Yeah, I think it begins well and it starts well, and that's always a big deal for me in a movie. That automatically tells me that it can at least keep itself together. And none of these problems that we're talking about, Maxwell Caulfield, or he's just now a problem, not a person. The weird shifts in tone, the sort of disappointingly watered down aspects of it, none of them in the context of a musical really affect my enjoyment too much.
Right.
Maybe I don't know, maybe that's me being, musical fans will probably, people who are hardcore musical fans will probably slate me for that, but I feel like it's a kind of form where you can sort of get away with that, and then if the next number is okay, that carries you to the next one. If that one's not so good, there'll be another one coming along soon, and kind of unevenness and weirdness that actually in the frame of a musical doesn't bother me as much as it would in a piece of obviously in a piece of comedy or a piece of horror. It adds and I clunky sequelness aside, Sandy's cousin, sequel inversions everywhere, this mixture of legacy and surrogate characters. We've talked about all this before. I actually like the starting point of, let's do something that's less offensive to women than the Olivia Newton-John kind of. I like where they start with the Michelle Pfeiffer character. I don't like necessarily quite where they end up with it, but I think there's a reversal there that's interesting to me, that is doing something different. And the idea of this movie being about duality and people switching roles, this kind of schizophrenic change in character, although a lot of that I think is just bad writing and planning and characterization and all the production troubles we've been talking about. It kind of works through most of the movie, so it kind of comes out in the wash okay.
All right.
A ringing endorsement.
High praise.
Walk, don't run.
I probably do. It's probably fair to say I do have lower standards when it comes to musical, especially if there's one or two really good numbers.
That kind of buys you a certain amount of latitude.
Yeah, and probably like every 20 minutes or so, there's a number that I think is okay or very, very good. So that'll carry me through. We talked about when we did Star Trek: The Motion Picture for our watch along. I said the biggest problem I have in the movie is like I don't know where to take a breather in the movie. It just feels like a screensaver. That's just like it's just constantly ongoing.
That whole
Whereas
movie's
the good
a breather.
Star Trek movies have a point at which you go like, oh, Chekhov saying Botany Bay, then I can go take a piss, and it's like this feels the same. It's like I've got all these buttons in there that are actually pretty satisfying.
All right.
But this movie's got big problems and should never have been made.
But don't
I'm
be ashamed if you want to put it on one Sunday afternoon and watch it and have a good time. Like, that's the weird thing.
I wonder how I've never watched these. I've never watched Grease and Grease 2 together. I wonder if that's like a Casino Royale Quantum of Solace thing. I wonder whether they're a nice
selling a
Ubertex
bill of
or
goods
not.
that I think only you are buying, sir.
Yeah.
And those two Harry Potter films, which I thought should be watched back to back as well. I wonder whether back to back might do something for this movie. I don't know.
I'm not going to find out. Yeah.
All right.
That's how a lot of people watch it, guaranteed.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we want to know what you think of Grease 2, one of 4 films from 1982 we're taking a look at here. If you have a differing opinion, please send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and let us know what you think. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's in between? You tell us. For Matt Aldrich and Tom Stewart, my name is Michael Shantz. Say goodbye, boys.
Goodbye.
Does this song stink or what? Dangerous line to say in a movie like this. Dangerous line.
All right, we're going to see you on the next episode for Airplane 2 coming at you. Take care.